Hey, this is the third episode of In the Moment with Vinny Francois talking to Will Hines about Harold's. I don't know if we need to recap what's been going on. We're just talking about Harold's and improv. Hey, Will.
Hi, Vinny. Yeah, we talked about Harold's overall and then openings and first beats.
Yeah. And if you're completely confused by what you're watching, maybe try to find the earlier two.
I'll say it very fast. The Harold's a structure of long form that goes like this. You get a suggestion, you do an opening, then you do first beats, which are 3 scenes, then a group game, second beats where you revisit those 3 scenes, a second group game, and then third beats where you try to make the scenes overlap. We're talking about that structure.
Perfect. It's like the elevator pitch for the Harold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after you've done your opening, you've generated your ideas, you've done your first beats, you do scene 1, 2, 3, and then comes the group game, the first group game. What's that about?
Yeah. Okay, so the group game is, so the scenes traditionally start with 2 people, although they don't have to. But since you practice that way, they tend to only be 2 or 3 people at the top. Maybe a couple people come in for support, but they feel like 2-person scenes. Then you come to the group game, which is the 4th proper scene of the Herald. Now you want almost everybody to be involved. Now, historically, the group game, like in the early 1980s, when Del Close was at the Improv Olympic, now the IO Theater in Chicago, and they were doing Heralds, like he was developing the Herald, the group game would be a spot for a short form game. They would stop and do like a quick short form game before they went back into long form scenes. So it was like a break.
Okay.
We don't do that anymore. It's just another scene, but it's still sort of, its function is to be a break. It's supposed to be like a little sillier, doesn't have to be as grounded. And so a lot of times a group game is, I mean, all it has to be is a scene where everybody's involved, but it works best if it's like a simple pattern that's repeated.
Okay, like an example of that would be?
I mean, it can be really dumb. Somebody walks up to somebody else and says, "Hi, I need some insect repellent. I got a case of fleas in my house." And the person's like, "Oh yeah, here you go. It's on sale. You can have it right now." And the next person walks up and says like, "Hi, I need some spider repellent. I got spiders all over the place." "Oh yeah, I got that right here." And the next person comes up and goes, "Hi, I need some sadness repellent. My life is sad and I can't get rid of the sadness."
Right.
"Oh, I got some pills for you." Just take these sadness repellent." And you do that 7 times and you sweep. That'd be like the simplest, dumbest version.
Okay.
But so, like, you're pretty early looking for something to seize on.
And then just kind of like roll with it with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Is it generally like people are walking in one at a time to do that, or everyone's like kind of all
common template? That's a common template. The line up and say something funny. There's also the everybody in at once, where like someone will do like a very clear where, like maybe someone will be a kid on a swing, and then everybody just jumps out and they fill out that playground.
Okay.
So we'll have the where first, and then the kids will just be like chattering about playground stuff.
Yeah.
Looking for something to yes and into absurdity pretty quick. A good rule of thumb for group games is you need 90% yes, 10% and, because what will happen is you'll come out, everyone will be kids in a playground, everyone's trying to think of like something funny, and everybody starts pitching a different funny idea that's unrelated. Like the kid on the swing will be like, I'm in 10th grade, too old, to be on the swings. But then the person on the seesaw will be like, I'm looking to adopt my own child.
Right.
Different idea, and then someone will be playing hopscotch and be like, God is dead or whatever. I don't know. These are weird ideas, but like they won't be yes-anding each other. They'll all be like pitching a different thing.
Okay.
That would be funny for a kid in a playground to be saying.
Right.
Now you've got 3 ideas floating. So that's like too much and not enough yes. And a better way to be when that first kid says, I'm in 10th grade, try to flesh that out a little bit first.
Okay.
Before we put a brand new idea in. Maybe that won't be our thing. Maybe that'll lead to something else, but don't abandon it totally.
Okay, so just kind of like reinforcing what's happening already.
Yeah, I mean, it's just yes and, but it's a group game. The pressure is really on to find something fast, so everyone pitches too much. Also, in a 2-person scene, you're doing 50% of the decision making.
Right.
But in an 8-person scene, you're doing whatever 1/8 of 100 is, like not less than 10%. No, more than 10, 12%, like 12% of the scene work or something like that. And so you don't need the scene needs a big decision, but you're only doing 12% of that big decision. So
Okay. So you don't want to add too big a piece to the puzzle because then you're just kind of like overburdening it.
Yep, it's tricky.
Hmm.
I mean, like any scene, it's better to have a grounded reality or just a reality that we understand before you try to make a big silly move. That's a higher percentage shot. Establish a playground, be normal kids, be specific kids. Maybe you're like at a gifted and talented like magnet school and you're all artists.
Okay.
That could happen, and that's real, but that's also specific. You start with that, and then someone will be able to very easily tease out something that's overtly a funny thing.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm having a hard time kind of generating like what other like maybe other examples are going to help me out.
So let me say right now, here's the thing you're trying to do that is impossible. You're looking, not maybe I'm going to guess, but there really aren't rules for this. That's what makes the Herald hard. The only rule is everybody's supposed to be involved.
Okay.
That's the only rule. So if you just do a regular scene and everybody's in it, you've fulfilled the requirements of the Herald.
Okay. And so what's the function then, I guess? Is it just a break? Is it a palate cleanser? Is it a...
It just seems to work better with it. Like I can't give you an overtly logical design. It just works. It's just like, I don't know why you need this much flour in the recipe. It just works better.
Right.
If you put some flour in, like, it gives a break before we come back to the beats. It makes the Herald feel full enough when you're done. It gives you another thing to connect with in the third beats.
Right. It's like that layer of icing between the cakes.
Yeah, it trades the focus maybe to somebody who wasn't that involved in the scenes. They get a chance to maybe star. It just solves a lot of problems. It often is sillier and funny. But it's not like I can absolutely point at the architecture of this and say it solves this problem.
Right.
The way you can point at the opening and be like, oh, you're supposed to get ideas for your scenes from that. And so therefore we can measure how good the opening is based on the ideas. I don't know how to measure a group game. It's just you do it.
You just do it. Okay.
Let it be simpler. More patterns is okay. It doesn't have to be, but your standard for how rich this scene is a little bit lower.
Okay, so you mentioned patterns in the past. You mentioned it again. It sounds like it's like a term that I'm maybe not super familiar with. So maybe you can go into that a little bit.
I don't necessarily mean anything formal by it, just like just like repeating stuff.
Okay.
Just like doing it more than once. But I'll just say that like when you're doing improv from scratch, just from a suggestion or from no suggestion, you want to be playing it real largely. Like you want to be specific, but you also want all of your moves to be generally like motivated by something that makes sense for the character. You don't want to do something random or arbitrary, right?
Right.
But then something funny happens, let's say, or something interesting, or just something that you really want it to be part of your scene a lot. Okay?
Right.
That first time, let's assume it comes up organically and it just fits into the flow of things nicely. Comedy says, doing that again would be satisfying.
Right.
But reality probably says, yeah, but there's no reason to do it again. But you, the comedian, are like, I don't care. I'm going to make it happen again.
Okay.
I'm going to make the same thing happen again or something very related to it, even though I'm now going to be breaking reality a bit more. But the audience won't care if you pick the right thing. They want funny stuff to happen again and again.
Okay.
Did you ever see Talladega Nights with Will Ferrell?
I did, yes.
So do you remember at one point he gets like a jackknife stuck in his leg?
Yes.
His legs are paralyzed, they're not, but he thinks they are. And so to test it, he takes a jackknife and just jams it into his thigh and then is screaming in pain.
Yeah.
He can't get the knife out.
Right.
And there's a quick montage of all the things they try to do to get the knife out.
Yeah.
One of the things they try is to put another knife in. They go like, maybe another knife, and they stick another knife in the wound.
Right.
That to me is definitely because Adam McKay is an improviser. It's like, oh, if something was funny once, do it a second time.
Right.
Even though there is no logical reason why anybody would think a second knife would help.
Right.
Just funny to do it a second time.
Even just telling me it's funny.
Right. So like patterns will bump up against your instinct to be real. I'll say this, and this is really mean, Vinny. Actors who are really good actors but are maybe not so good comedians are bad at patterns because they're like, there's no reason to do that. And the comedians, they'll hit the patterns to a fault. They'll hit it too early. But group games like patterns. See, what I'm saying is you can force it a little more in group games.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You could stick the knife in his thigh and then almost immediately get a second knife in there. You don't need to do that.
You're looking for that other knife. Like when do I get to jam that knife in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
The group game will let you do that a little bit more. But if everybody's involved and you're working together and you're not pitching too many ideas, your group game was successful.
And roughly how long is that supposed to be? Like your
3 minutes?
Yeah, just 3 minutes, like a really short one.
Yep. All these scenes are going to be like 3 minutes, 4 minutes at most. Maybe the first beats will be 4 minutes.
Okay, because you're working with like within an idealized 20-minute time frame, right?
I'd say 25. Yeah.
25. Okay.
Yeah. So we have 3 first beats, 3 second beats. That's 6 scenes. 2 group games. Now we're up to 8. An opening is a 9th element. We'll probably get 2 things in the third beats. That's 11 scenes. So what's 11 into 25?
That's just over 2, like 2 and maybe a third.
So the third beats will be short. The third beats could be under a minute, but that's why we're looking 2 to 3 minutes. So a Herald, the components of the Herald aren't that onerous. It's just trying to make them fit into this tapestry that's difficult.
Right.
Some people do longer Heralds. Some people pretty traditionally do 30-minute Heralds, and it's not insane to do a 40-minute Herald. Okay. Over 40 is weird. But you could go to 40 and you could have sort of TJ and Dave like first beats, where they're really like easing into it and exploring a lot of stuff. You could do that easy.
I think that was the last book I read, their new TJ and Dave improvisation book. And yeah, they don't talk a lot about Heralds.
They didn't talk a lot about it?
Do they do a Herald?
I've never seen them. No, they just do like...
I think they do. Yeah, this talks about just like characters starting off and then like going off and kind of letting that scene build itself out.
Yeah, they just do like a world.
Yeah.
I think they would hate everything I'm talking about here. Like it goes against the aesthetics of their show pretty hard.
Yeah, I think. Well, just judging from their book, I don't know if they'd hate it, but I think that they just would.
It's not their jam. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I just like good improv, like whatever form it takes. So, yeah, which is why I'm so fascinated by the Herald.
Yeah.
And in
3 minutes, and it should be, and you sweep it, and then we're going to go into second beats. We're going to go revisit the first scene of the show now.
Okay. And for those group games, like what are the, again, like I want to ask, what are the pitfalls of that one? Like what are some common mistakes that people?
All right. Despite everything I said, if you jump on something that's too thin, it'll be hard to keep going. Like, don't just take the first line and repeat it. Actually, you almost could, but that'll be pretty limiting. Jumping too early is a problem. And on the other side of it, not making any specific choices.
Right.
Being too vague.
It's got to get it just right.
Yeah, making realistic but specific choices is a real strength in all. I mean, obviously, in all scenes, in all improv, and in a group game. Kids in a playground is good, but kids at a gifted and talented playground is better. Kids at a juvenile, like delinquent playground is better.
Right.
They're not necessarily funny, but they're specific.
Yeah, there's more to work with when you have more details.
Kids even in a geographic region, you know, like with a specific accent that you could identify and then play jokes on the region.
Right.
That's something. British kids, you know, like just do a bunch of British kids and then reveal that they're all classmates of the royal family, but the royal family's not there and they're talking shit about whatever.
Right.
You know.
Okay. And then once that dissolves, we go back to revisit the first beat, the first scene of the first beat.
Right. So we had 3 scenes in the first beats. So now the second beats, we're going to revisit each of them in order.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do a second beat.
And what are we looking for there?
All right. Now, I'd say after we talked about how there's tons of discussion about the opening.
Sure.
And that's true. There's more discussion and argument over an opening than any other part of the Herald. But the second most contentious issue is what makes a good second beat.
Right.
So you will find coaches and teachers very passionate about what is a good second beat. And one takeaway is that it's ultimately whatever the team wants.
Okay. And
I will speak very generally. The audience has to know that you are revisiting the scene from the first beat in some fashion. They have to very clearly connect it and be like, oh, we're doing this again.
Right.
That feeling has to happen because this makes the Herald feel deep and substantive, that we are going to explore more deeply something. Generally in improv, you do a scene and it's over, it's gone.
Right.
You know, but the Herald forces you to explore it more deeply. So the audience has to be along for that ride. So whatever you do, my minimum test for a second beat is, did the audience know you were revisiting that scene? They did. You hit the minimum qualification of a second beat.
Okay. Like you get like a D.
You get a D. I'd give it a C. Now, just above that, you want to explore it further. That's the next goal, is like go further than you went. You know, have it be a sequel where you push it more. You know, like let's say Alien and Aliens, you know those movies?
Right.
So Alien is one alien on the ship and it's killing everybody, and it's sort of like a haunted house vibe. They're trapped
with
a monster, and it's this impossibly powerful one, and it's a fascinating monster, and it's creepy
and everything. Yeah.
Every aspect of it is like either gross or compelling or both.
Right.
Aliens is like, let's visit multiple aliens, all in a colony, including a mother alien who is like super smart and protecting all the other ones. We're going to go further with the concept of this monster. Now what happens, right? That's a good second beat. It didn't just redo Alien.
Right.
It didn't just stick the monster in another thing, although that would be satisfactory. That would get a D. That'd be like, yeah, that's a good sequel.
It's like Predator 2. Like, oh, instead of a jungle, it's LA.
Exactly. That is a C-level second beat. And nobody cares about Predator 2. People, but it's not renowned. The way Aliens is renowned.
Right.
Terminator 2 is also James Cameron, is another good second beat. You know, Terminator, you've got this killer robot from the future.
Right.
And in Terminator 2, he's the good guy, and there's another. So what if he's on your side? He's protecting you from a different, worse killer robot. Absolutely. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and they're both super compelling characters.
Yeah, that's a great second beat.
Yeah, okay.
So you want to feel like you went further. Now, the main pitfall of a second beat, now this is where you and I can talk because you do so much narrative stuff, Vinny. The main pitfall is to continue the story only.
Okay.
If you continue the plot only, you'll get a C because the audience will be like, I see how that's connected, but it's not going to be satisfying because you won't explore ideas any further, or you risk not exploring ideas any further. Okay, so a good example would be like Alien. In the movie Alien, Sigourney Weaver is the only survivor of that movie. The alien kills everybody, but she survives and blasts the alien into space. Sorry, I just ruined the end of Alien for everybody.
I feel like that's okay.
The weakest possible second beat would be Sigourney Weaver gets home and like sues her bosses and gets in a protracted legal battle. And and is traumatized, and we see her go through therapy, and she can't be connected to her family anymore. That all makes total sense, and it follows. But you're not. That's a bad sequel to Alien. That's like really bad.
That's not why we saw the first one.
Yeah, but I see a lot of second beats that essentially are that. They're kind of like, oh, what else? What else could maybe happen to this person?
What happens next here?
Yeah, what happens next is bad. Now, but plot isn't necessarily bad. Like you just have to, this is where your comedian pattern brain has to force the thing again that you want. Mm-hmm. All right. What would you say is the main fun of Alien?
It's like meeting this alien that's
like, what do we want to, what do we want to see again in the sequel somehow?
Yeah, like people like people dwindling one by one until like a final confrontation with Sigourney and some alien again.
Right, yeah. Like this horrible monster and this action and the suspense of trying to elude it, right? We want that. And Aliens had that. So if Sigourney Weaver went back home and sued her bosses and was in trauma, the best way to make it a true second beat would be to have the physical therapist be, okay, so to get you over the trauma, we're going to trap you in a room with an alien.
Right.
So you can not be scared of it anymore. And then we're going to get all the fun in a way that we didn't expect.
Right.
We're right back in it. Or maybe if that's too far-fetched, you could just be like, we have all the physical therapists hiding in the air ducts, and and they all have knives, and they're just going to attack you at night. So it's not the monster, but it's the same kind of suspense type of thing. I would count that as a good second beat.
It's like still like it's a legal thriller, but with knives.
Yeah, but I think I would get the main visceral appeal of the first beat. I mean,
like the physical danger.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
I mean, this is the kind of thinking you have to do. Like, okay, well, anyway, so what I'm just saying is you can follow the plot as long as you take the game with you, the fun part. Redo the fun part somehow.
So identifying what was fun about the first beat sounds critical, and then finding a way to amplify or repeat or heighten it.
Okay, to go with another Alien second beat example that's not as crazy, maybe it's an alien trapped in a ship with an alien, so it's two aliens fighting each other.
With Predator, like that would be an Alien versus Predator. But now
bring Predator in a third beat or as a lock-on, something like that. But I would start just with an alien passenger being like, "Oh, there's an alien in the ship," and the other alien say, "But we're aliens." Attack that. It's like, I don't know. I'm too. I got a mission to fulfill here. I can't waste my time hunting aliens. I don't know. I could see it being a good second beat. It would go further. It would explore the psychology of the most fascinating character of the first one in an interesting way.
Right. Okay.
So the second beat they're not normally that hard or that high concept. Like usually you either have a really good character in the first beat, so bring that character back and put them in a situation that lets them do their thing the best. And
so, yeah, I could see if you're bringing a character back, how the danger of like continuing the story is so ever present.
It's only bad to continue the story if you leave behind the fun part.
Right.
You can continue the story as long as, like Austin Powers can go on, finishes the mission, and then just goes on with his life as long as he's still being Austin Powers and doing his Austin Powers thing.
Right. And like, is like changing contexts, like, is that like, well, I guess it's not necessary, but that's
not necessary, but it's often fun.
Right.
Good challenge. Like,
so like at work, and then we see them at home. Or
yep, and hopefully they'll be displaying the same behavior.
Right.
Or we'll see other consequences of that behavior. So characters, you keep them. If it's not a character, if it's just like a weird idea, like the characters are all normal, but they are involved in a strange premise.
Right.
Situation, or just some weird logic, like that famous Monty Python scene from the Holy Grail when they're accusing somebody of being a witch, and they're trying to concoct how to test her properly to see if she's a witch, and their logic is really sort of selectively dumb.
Right.
Like
weighs as much as a duck, then she's a witch.
Right. Yeah, I think it's like if she floats in water, she's a witch, but so does a duck. So if she weighs the same as a duck, then she's a witch. Like that. That's the joke.
Yeah.
So the second beat could be another setting entirely and another characters, but they're still doing protracted dumb logic of how to test something.
Okay.
It's like two cops investigating a criminal, and they're sort of like, how do we know you did it?
Right.
Well, traditionally these crimes are done by white males from a suburban thing. So if you weigh the same as any white male, then you did it, or something like that. And the audience goes, oh, this is the same kind of joke than that witch scene.
Okay, so that line has to be like clearly drawn and underlined.
Yeah, otherwise you're not going to get the effect of like thickening.
Right. And
so a good second beat in the UCB world is like really the product of kind of abstract thinking and comedy writing. The Herald really, the way we do it, and I just say that because I think other places are not so strict about this. The vibe I get, and I've never studied at IO, but I feel like Heralds there are looser, where as long as it's any way associated with the first beat, it's okay. And, you know, in other words, what I'm saying is a C second beat is an A second beat.
Okay.
As long as it's overtly connected to the first one.
Right.
But we are stricter and a little bit more rigid about, no, it's got to explore stuff further or you didn't do it.
Okay. So like that, there's like that extra bar to clear. Instead of just a connection, it has to be pushing the concept of the first beat.
Yeah.
And I guess if I'm starting the second beat with someone and I'm like, I'm not bringing back a character, I'm trying to bring back the concept. Like my scene partner has to be like, oh, where are we going with this? Where are we taking this? So you have to get that out clearly and succinctly as well.
Yep. A big challenge. So one of the pitfalls is people from first beat being on different pages. Mm-hmm. So like when you initiate a second beat, it's got to be clear to your partner what you're doing. I mean, just like an improv, if they're not, you'll yes and out of it and just enjoy the chaos. But ideally, you initiate in a way that gets them on the same page. So like, it's a skill to have an initiation that clearly triggers to the other person what you're thinking. What you end up learning how to do a lot is using similar wordings. Okay, so in my witch example to a police interrogation, let's say you and I did the witch scene.
Sure.
We walk out the second beat. You're thinking, all right, we're going to be hunting another witch. We're going to be in medieval England for sure. But I'm thinking, no, man, I got this idea. I got to let Vinny know. I think this will be really funny. So you step out. I look right at you. I'm like, all right, this perp's not talking. So I'm letting you know. Different setting. Hopefully you'll be like, all right, I don't see where this is going, but I'm just going to be neutral and let him get his idea out. I'd be like, this perp's not talking, all right? So I got another guy who did it, who weighs the same.
Okay.
I think that's what we're going to use to crack this guy. And then you can either be with me on board, being like, great, let's weigh him. Or be like, that's a terrible, no, that you could be the straight man.
Right.
But we're taking with us this dumb idea into a new world.
Okay, I'd say. And like, I guess that's like, do you practice that? Are there exercises that practice like succinct situations?
I mean, like use phrases that were used, use body language that was used, use voices, like just trigger the muscle memory
of the first
like, this is the part I'm taking.
Okay. And like,
don't like hint about it. Like lay it right in that first line.
Yeah, I was going to add, like, can you be too on the nose about it? Like without being like, too obvious or too, like, I guess that'd
no
thing, right?
I've rarely seen a second beat where I'm like, they were too obvious at the start.
Right. It's like, come on.
You could heighten too obviously. Like you could make unsurprising choices after you've connected, but I want the connection to be clear and solid.
Right.
You know, improv is not about, it's not written, so I can't do sleight of hand to reveal secrets very well. Right. It doesn't work. Improv is more about like, all right, Sigourney, now we're going to send you in with a lot of aliens. Like that's a good beginning to the improv version of the movie Aliens.
It's just an opening scroll.
Just like lay it out. Like be clear, get them on the same page. And then, you know, don't be too complicated. Like if your second beat takes too long to explain, it's a bad idea.
Right. Right. Succinct, right?
Yeah, and it'd be better to start very similar and try to go further through your exploration, through your heightening and your support.
Okay. And the people, is it the same people from the first beat and the second beat, or can we start to like have that, like
Not as a
not
rule.
necessarily the same characters, but there's like different performers coming in?
There's no hard rule on this, but it works better if you're going to have the same character, the same actor should be playing.
Okay.
Just way simpler.
Right.
Unless it was a thing where everybody was kind of acting similarly, like if you had like 4 real bro dudes being real bros, then anybody could be a bro in the second beat because it's just an archetype we're playing with. But generally, if there's one person who's like this weird mom, we want that actor to be the same mom.
Right.
Generally speaking. Also, usually the same actors start the second beat. But if somebody else has a really good idea for it, and this is where it just takes playing with each other to know, but if you're in the back line, you're like, I got a great one, I'm going to start it.
Right.
You can just start the second beat.
Everyone's going to be like, okay, they've got something, let's go with it.
I mean, you know where you are in the structure, so you know that, oh, Anthony is starting. Anthony wasn't in the scene, but he's starting it, so he's got a second beat idea. Let's see what he's got.
Okay.
It's also very common to step out and kind of make eye contact with somebody who was in the first beat and be like, come on, I need you. And I'm going to feed you something that'll help set you up.
Okay, so is it really just like that eye contact? Because like I know sometimes when we do stuff, it's really like we're like, hey, I'm pointing to you, like let's do.
Point sometimes too. I was taught that pointing in second beats is weak. That it's allowed.
Right. Yeah. It seems like you probably get away with it when you're first learning it, but then as you get better at it, you probably wouldn't need it.
Well, yeah, it's cooler if you don't.
Right. Yeah. You're like, hey.
I, for some reason, was always told like second beats pointing is weak, third beats pointing is okay. Point and third beats, like get right to it.
All these little arcane.
But that's a real style and taste thing that I agreed with. That I don't hear that repeated a lot.
Okay. And so then you have your first beat, you have your first scene of the second beat, you have your second scene, and then you have your third scene. And are these like kind of starting to like they're not kind of like thematically linked in any way or character linked in any way?
We still don't want them to connect.
What's that?
We do not want them to connect.
Right. You explicitly.
Don't worry about it.
Right.
We're going to worry about that in the third beats. You just keep them all and keep the integrity of each one unto themselves.
Okay.
Here's another common thing you do in second beats. Once you've connected, once you've established your second beat idea and you've unpacked it a little bit, a phrase that we say is expand the world.
And what does that mean?
Go, like, now that we know what our main thing is, can we quickly see how it affects other parts of this world that maybe we weren't thinking about? Can we follow the consequences fast?
Like if this, then that kind of thing?
If this, then what? Can we use tag-outs and walk-ons to show like just stuff affecting other people? Okay, like I saw a Herald Monday night where the first beat was a kid talking to his guidance counselor and saying that he needed to be on Dean's list because he was going to get money for it. And the guidance counselor is like, your parents giving you money for good grades? I don't approve of that practice. And frankly, that's not my problem.
Right.
And the kid goes, not my parents, the government. And it's on the hush hush. It's not legal. But I've been getting money on the sly. And they started playing it like it was a government conspiracy where the federal government was subsidizing kids to get good grades.
Okay.
And it was like the tone of the scene was like, you know, All the President's Men, like a 70s political thriller. Right? And the guidance counselor is the voice of reason, but the kid's talking about, like, you know, meeting people in parking garages and tapped phone lines and is this room safe, you know? To the second beat, the same two actors come out. And they're still the guidance counselor and the student, but now they're in an Italian restaurant and they're talking in code. And they're doing sort of a mafia sort of thing.
Okay.
And it's about trying to bust open this grade pricing scheme. And they're just playing a genre game. But now there's a guy at another table who's got a gun and points it at the guidance counselor, goes, don't make a sound. Just hand over the transcript to the kid and make nice with the A's. So now there's mob fixers throughout the restaurant. And like, you know, in The Godfather, there's an iconic scene where they're hiding a gun in the bathroom and a guy goes into the bathroom and gets the gun and then comes out and kills somebody. Like he was frisked, so he doesn't have a weapon, but there's a gun waiting for him in the bathroom. So they made it so that there's a computer password in the bathroom to hack into his grades and change it or something like that.
Okay.
But they're all being like mob dudes. The whole restaurant's filled with mob dudes. Okay. And then there's one person who's not a mob dude who's like, when do I get service? I just want to eat in this restaurant. I'm not in the mob. Is it okay if I just eat food here? And we start like exploring the consequences of this world where everybody is a spy and on the, you know,
involved in the conspiracy.
Yeah, they like fleshed it out further.
Okay, interesting. All right, and so you establish, you repeat and push the first beat concept, and then there, even within that second beat, you still kind of like let it grow a little bit.
Hopefully, yeah. You want to expand it. You want to see what other people think. Okay, here's a good one. The first beat in that same Herald, the first beat was a husband who was out late and the wife is upset. And he says that he had last-minute tickets to see Cirque du Soleil, the acrobatic show in Las Vegas, and that's why he's late. And the wife doesn't believe that Cirque du Soleil exists. She thinks it's a myth like Santa Claus.
Right.
And that the husband's just lying. No such thing as Cirque du Soleil. It's an urban legend. Second beat is now they don't play the same characters, new characters. Same actors, but new characters. I mean, I didn't know that at first, but that's what it ended up being.
Sure.
The woman who played the wife comes out, and the guy who plays the husband sits down and goes, okay, your next word for the spelling bee is circus. And they're making it that, all right, now we're at a spelling bee. I'm giving the word, you're the student. Different characters, different setting. And the woman who was playing the student goes, that's not a thing. Circus is not a thing.
Right.
Yes, it is. Like, well, I don't have to spell that word because it's describing something that doesn't exist. And they're like, actually, that doesn't matter for a spelling bee. She's like, I'm only going to spell things that are real. Right. And then they're like, okay, the next word is God. She's like, that doesn't exist. I'm not spelling that.
And so they just keep playing that.
Yeah. So like the game is like, now they have kind of two games. One is like, oh, she won't spell words that doesn't exist. And also, what else doesn't exist? What could we say doesn't exist?
Right.
They have like a new game, but it's grown right out of the old one, right? So it's like, that's a pretty good second beat.
Right. Okay, I'm catching on here. And then you have your third scene, and then you do 1, 2, 3, and then you come back to another group game?
Yep. Group game is the same rules as the first one. We just want to break. Does not have anything to do with the first group game. It's not a second beat of that group game. It is a brand new scene. Exact same rules as the first group game.
And can they be like too short? Like it's like, oh, we didn't get everybody. Like does it ever, like not everybody got a chance to pipe in, or?
No, I mean as long as it fulfilled itself naturally.
Right.
Some group games are real short. Probably though it's gonna be like 2 minutes. I'll say another thing that I've noticed a lot of times in the second group game. This is not a rule, and I actually never even heard this said, but just through my observation, a lot of times the second group game, instead of taking an idea from the opening, they'll use the suggestion very directly as an inspiration, but they'll be exploring it in terms of everything we've seen in the Herald so far. It'll almost be like checking in with the suggestion given what we've learned.
Okay. Huh.
It'll be explore the aspect of the suggestion that we stuck with.
And is that just a trend you've noticed?
Yeah, I think it's because people have used up all the obvious ideas from the opening, and there's no other ideas that everybody's on the same page with, so they go back to the suggestion, but they're very influenced by what they've been doing, so it's like they just naturally are guided to like the aspect of the suggestion that they've been exploring.
And is there like where can you draw inspiration from for those group games? Like, can you go to the suggestion? Can you go to the opening?
You always go to the suggestion. You're supposed to go to the opening, but if the opening's got nothing for you, you can go back to the suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah, the second group game, first of all, the only official rule is the same as the first group game. But I will just say a lot of times it ends up being the theme of the Herald restated. It ends up being that.
The theme of the Herald, like, and
stated for the first time. Like the second group game tells you what this show has to say about the suggestion.
Okay, and so are people consciously or unconsciously kind of like working out like how do these 3 beats?
No one ever does it. It happens unconsciously.
It happens unconsciously, where you're just kind of like well, how do these 3 scenes that we've seen, these like silos?
It's more just like we're out of ideas. What's the suggestion? Comb. All right, and their brain is just already grooved to think in terms of where they're at.
It sounds like just like we're exhausted. What's happening here? Okay, let's grab this.
Yeah.
Cool. And then so you've got your first group game, your second beat, second group game, and then we'll come back to
third beat next time.
Yeah. Is there anything that you like didn't get to address when it comes to?
No, man, we're doing good.
Okay, good. Then I guess we can end this one here.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thanks a lot, Will. And we'll talk about third beats in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.